Hello and welcome to the Computer Crowd. My name is Connor and today we will be installing DHCP server on Windows Server 2012 R2. Just as a side note, sorry for the voice in these videos. I've been sick over the past couple of weeks and I still haven't gotten my voice back. So let's get started. Now, if you've been following my little series on Windows Server, you are at the same position or same point in time that I am on this domain controller, which you can see here is DC01, and we're just going to create our DHCP server on this domain controller. To start, you're going to go to Manage, Add Roles and Features, and normally you would read this little blurb, but we're just going to skip that. This is going to be a role-based or feature-based installation. I'm going to select my server. Since we only have one server right now, that's the only one that should show up. And then you're going to scroll down here to DHCP server. It's going to say, hey, you need to add these features. Click Add Features. Next. 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 And then I'm going to check Restart the destination server if it needs to, and click Install. While this is installing, we will just wait and let's see. One thing to note is that I have this server on a VLAN that does not have a DHCP server. So the setup's going to be a little unique to my current setup, but I think it's a good way to show how you would normally install a DHCP server on a network. The next video in this series will actually go over some of the installing of Active Directory. Well, I won't go too in depth. We will cover some of the basics to get you started. And after the Active Directory installation, we have some Windows deployment services and Windows Server update services. One thing I will mention is I'm not an expert in this at all, but I have been studying for the MCSA, and I can do all this stuff, but when it comes to the test, it's hard for me to take the tests. This role does take a little while to install. Obviously, you can see that it's got 2 gigs of RAM. This server can ramp up to 4 gigs of RAM. Now that this is installed, we'll close the installer. And you can see up here our notifications that there's configuration required. So we'll complete the configuration. This is basically just saying, hey, it's going to install these groups. Now it's going to actually, it already did it, created the groups for us. Now you see we got our DHCP role here. Now if you go up to Tools, you can go to the DHCP menu, or App. Wait for it to open here. And you can see that we have IPv4 and 6, but right now there's nothing actually configured. So what we're going to do is we're going to configure a scope. So we're going to do a new scope. And let's name it main scope. And my IP range is 10, 200, 40. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this scope go to 100, or start at 100. And have it go to 254. And the subnet mask, which is going to be a 24, or /24, which is 255.255.255.0. Next. And actually, what we're going to do is we're going to put the whole range in there. And that's actually the whole IP range. You cannot put your broadcast address in there, so change that back to 254. Now I'm going to exclude all those IPs, because .1 is my gateway, which is my main router, and I want to leave this range for some statically assigned items such as servers. Next, client lease time is going to be, since this is a lab setup, I'm going to make it 4 days. In your setup, I would suggest leaving it at 8, because the lease process does start at the 50% mark. So my lease process with this setup will start at 2 days, whereas if you have it set to 8 days, it'll start at the 4-day mark. And that just, the longer you set it, the less traffic you'll have. And we're going to configure some common options. Now my gateway, which is my router. Right now we don't have any domain or DNS set up, but that will come later, and I will, when I go through the Active Directory domain process and install DNS, I will show you the process to change these settings. So I'm just going to keep the DNS set to what the server's DNS is set to. I don't have any wins, so next. And yes, I'm going to say yes, I want to activate the scope, and finish. Now you can see that it's active, and let's power up one of my client machines. Okay, and we're back. For those of you who are paying attention, you'll notice that we had a pretty massive jump cut in there, and that's because I had installed a client operating system. And I booted that operating system for us already. Connect to it, and you can see that there's the DHCP server that we created. It's giving this VM that IP address and setting the gateway, as well as the DNS servers. And if we go back over to domain controller, you can see I have an address conflict here I'm not sure what that is. Part of it is that I have a few other VMs on another server that have been running for since December, and they grabbed an IP address already. You'll see this is my physical laptop that I've got sitting behind me, right here on my desk with me. And then you can see this one is the VM we created. Now you can do many things from here. You can add reservations and do all kinds of other nifty stuff, but I think that's a little past the scope of what we're doing here today. So that is installing DHCP on Windows Server 2012 R2.
Thanks for watching our tutorial. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please join the forums at www.thecomputercrowd.net or click the I in the upper right hand corner.